Take a moment to pause, slow everything down, take a deep breath, and listen carefully in complete stillness. Because the reason you have arrived here at this exact moment may not be as random as you think. There are no accidents in the way certain messages reach us precisely when we need them most. The universe does not create mistakes, and even the systems surrounding us that appear entirely mechanical can respond to the energetic patterns formed by your strongest intentions, emotions, and desires. While you have been questioning so many things within your mind, wondering whether this person still thinks about you, wondering if something between the two of you remains unfinished, or fearing that the connection has been permanently damaged, something important may have already shifted beneath the surface. A meaningful transformation has taken place, but it did not happen through a conversation you personally heard, a message that suddenly appeared on your screen, or some obvious physical sign placed directly before you. Instead, it happened through a quiet inner decision made somewhere beyond what your physical eyes could see. There was a moment when something changed inside this person, a private realization, a silent understanding, a choice that developed in a place where nobody else could witness it. Your spirit needs to recognize this invisible movement because it may hold significance for the direction your journey is now beginning to take. If something within you feels that these words are reaching you personally, leave a like so this message can reach another person who may need the same reminder. For many days, and perhaps even for several weeks, you may have carried a strange pressure within your chest. A feeling that you are waiting for something you cannot quite explain. A quiet concern that remains present even when you deliberately try to focus your attention on other parts of life. You may feel as though you are expecting an answer, a sign, or some kind of communication that simply has not arrived, leaving the entire situation feeling unfinished, uncertain, and unresolved. But this sensation within your body, the heaviness you sometimes feel in your heart, the unusual feeling in your throat, and those unexpected moments when you wake in the middle of the night may not feel like ordinary thoughts created by your imagination. They can feel like signs that something within your emotional and spiritual awareness has recognized a change before your physical reality has had the opportunity to reveal it. The person who continues appearing in your thoughts, the person whose memory returns during completely ordinary moments of your day, may no longer be standing in that same place of uncertainty and hesitation. They may no longer be trapped in the space where every possibility exists, but no genuine decision is ever made. Something inside them has begun to move. Something has started to change. Recently, perhaps during a quiet night when they were unable to distract themselves, or during a moment of complete solitude when they had no choice but to face their own thoughts, they finally looked more deeply into their feelings. They examined what they genuinely wanted, what they were afraid of, and what direction they truly wanted their life to move toward. This decision did not necessarily come from a temporary emotion, a fear of being alone, or a simple desire for comfort. It came from somewhere much deeper, something connected to a truth they could no longer continue ignoring. Some connections carry a weight that cannot easily be erased. Some bonds continue demanding attention, regardless of how much distance is placed between two people. Souls that are meant to cross paths cannot avoid their lessons forever. People can create distance, they can choose silence, they can construct emotional walls around themselves, they can behave as though they feel nothing. They can convince themselves that separation has completely removed the connection. But eventually, every person reaches a point where the emotions they have buried become too powerful to continue ignoring. There comes a moment when the pressure created by everything left unspoken becomes greater than the fear of confronting the truth. This may be the invisible force you are sensing right now. This restless feeling, this unusual awareness, and this repeated reminder of them may exist because your energy still feels connected with theirs in a way that goes beyond physical circumstances. Distance does not always destroy a meaningful connection. Time apart does not automatically mean the end. Silence does not necessarily mean someone has forgotten you. Even painful words, misunderstandings, and periods of separation cannot always erase a bond that has touched something deeper within both people. When a decision is formed from the deepest part of someone's being, the other person can sometimes sense that change without having any logical evidence to explain it. This may be why their voice suddenly enters your thoughts while you are doing something completely normal. It may be why memories of them appear while you are working, resting, relaxing, or involved in something that has absolutely nothing to do with them. It may also be why their image appears in your dreams, even after you have deliberately tried to direct your attention somewhere else. This experience does not automatically mean obsession, and it does not necessarily prove that you are incapable of moving forward. It can represent a powerful emotional connection that still carries meaning and emotional energy for you. Something inside you may recognize that invisible communication between two people can continue even when there is no physical conversation taking place. Comment below if you feel that this person has already reached some kind of decision within themselves, even though they have not yet revealed it openly. Many people misunderstand deep emotional connections because they assume that genuine love, destiny, or spiritual bonds should always feel simple, peaceful, effortless, and perfect, much like the stories presented in movies. But the reality of deep emotional connections can be entirely different. Real connections challenge us. They disturb patterns that have existed for a long time. They bring uncomfortable emotions to the surface. They expose hidden wounds that we would rather keep buried. They force people to look honestly at themselves and question the decisions and behaviors they have been repeating. While there has been distance between you and this person, they may have been placed in a situation where they had to face their own reflection. Without their usual distractions, without being able to hide behind familiar behaviors, they had to confront difficult questions within themselves. Were they going to keep running away from what they genuinely felt? Were they going to continue avoiding the reality of the connection? Or would they finally find enough courage to accept what their heart had been trying to show them? Even though you may not see immediate changes in the outside world, a decision can already exist internally. The unseen often moves before the physical world catches up. What has been accepted within the heart eventually looks for a way to express itself in reality. The physical circumstances surrounding you may appear exactly the same right now, but that does not necessarily mean that nothing is happening. Sometimes the most significant changes begin quietly, away from public attention, long before they become visible to everyone else. Nothing can permanently prevent what is genuinely aligned with a person's deepest intentions. When inner desire and appropriate timing come together, outer circumstances can begin reflecting what has already been formed within. This message is not here to create unrealistic expectations or keep you trapped in endless waiting. Instead, it is here to help you understand that certain periods of separation are not necessarily endings. Sometimes separation becomes preparation. Sometimes it becomes a period in which both people are changing, healing, learning, and being guided toward a clearer understanding of themselves and the connection they share. This silence is not automatically abandonment. It can be a period of inner organization, a necessary space in which this person needed time to understand the depth of what they were feeling and determine whether they were truly prepared to face it. When you stop allowing fear to control your thoughts and begin listening more carefully to your deeper awareness, you may start noticing that your emotions and intuition can reveal things that your logical mind cannot immediately explain. The unusual mixture of peace and anticipation you may be experiencing can feel like your inner self recognizing something before your circumstances have fully revealed it. That strange calm, combined with expectation, can appear when something inside you believes that a change is approaching. When tears unexpectedly come to your eyes, when the heaviness inside your chest begins to lift, or when an old emotional wound starts feeling lighter, it can represent a process of healing taking place within you. You are not necessarily waiting for someone who is completely lost and uncertain. You may simply be moving through a chapter of transformation in which things are being rearranged so that whatever is meant to unfold can develop in the way it needs to. This person's separation was not necessarily the result of one sudden decision or one random thought appearing at a particular moment. Rather, it may have been the outcome of a long, silent, and often lonely internal struggle between what their heart was genuinely recognizing and what their conditioned mind had convinced them they needed to do in order to move forward. For a long time, they tried to convince themselves through logical explanations that they could continue living their life without looking back. They kept their mind occupied with endless responsibilities, temporary distractions, meaningless activities, and even connections with other people, hoping these things would eventually erase what they continued feeling deep inside. But none of those things could completely remove the constant awareness that something between you remained unfinished. It was like leaving a door slightly open, a door they could never fully close, regardless of how much effort they made to walk away. Comment connected, if you believe your souls remain deeply connected even through the silence. A person can attempt to ignore a genuine connection or bury it beneath noise, activity, and distractions. But something that feels real cannot simply disappear because someone decides not to acknowledge it. Every failed attempt to escape can bring a person closer to the unavoidable moment when they must finally make a choice. Slowly, they began feeling the heavy pressure of living in a way that did not match who they truly were. They started recognizing that the emptiness they carried was connected to their own internal resistance toward what their heart already knew about you. Rejecting this connection demanded too much of their emotional energy. Little by little, it took away their peace, their balance, and their ability to maintain the version of reality they had created for themselves. Eventually, continuing to pretend that nothing meaningful existed between you became impossible. If there were nights when you blamed yourself, wondering whether you had given too much love, offered too much care, or opened your heart more deeply than you should have, you need to release that burden of guilt. Their distance was not necessarily caused by the amount of love you gave. It happened because, at that particular point in time, they were not emotionally prepared to handle the intensity and depth of what they were experiencing with you. This person had to confront deeply rooted fears within themselves. They struggled with the fear of losing control over the life they had carefully created. They faced the fear of becoming emotionally exposed, and they carried the fear of reopening painful chapters from their past that they had never wanted to experience again. They created distance not because they felt nothing, but because they may have felt something so powerful that it became overwhelming for someone who was not accustomed to facing emotions at that level of depth. As time continued to pass, the things around them began losing the excitement they once had. The distractions that previously helped them avoid their feelings no longer produced the same effect. They began recognizing that creating distance, delaying honesty, and avoiding the truth only increased their regret and created an even stronger feeling of longing. They started understanding that what happened between you was not simply an ordinary encounter. It was a meaningful meeting that became an important turning point within their personal journey. It became the moment that encouraged them to stop fighting against their own inner voice and begin accepting a connection that did not follow the ordinary patterns they were familiar with. Type yes if you want me to reveal more signs that their decision is becoming real. You remain a powerful influence behind this transformation. And this is why you may have recently experienced a strange emotional tiredness within yourself. You are beginning to let go of the intense need to control how everything will happen or exactly when the outcome will appear. This feeling is not weakness, failure, or sadness. It represents a deeper stage of growth where you are learning to trust the connection and allowing the energy between you to unfold naturally. Do not expect everything to change immediately, because the path of meaningful love is rarely a perfectly straight road without challenges, adjustments, or periods of silence. Sometimes those quiet periods are necessary because they give both people the space to heal, understand themselves, and complete the inner changes they need before moving forward. The biggest difference now is that the uncertainty has begun to fade. When the heart truly chooses something, that inner force naturally starts moving toward honesty, much like a river that eventually discovers its path toward the ocean. Even while they handle their everyday responsibilities and close old situations they previously did not have the courage to finish, they may still be gathering the strength required to act on what they have accepted within themselves. But they are no longer completely lost between confusion and avoidance. They are no longer running without understanding the reason behind it. They are beginning to recognize the truth of their emotions and allowing that awareness to reshape their entire perspective. Meaningful love often arrives after difficult lessons because those experiences help both individuals mature during periods of separation and silence. These challenges guide both sides toward a more mature, conscious, and authentic version of themselves. You have also changed throughout this journey. You have learned to trust your intuition, create healthier boundaries, and understand the incredible value you possess simply by being yourself. Nothing you experienced was meaningless. Every tear, every moment of uncertainty, and every night you spent questioning the situation was part of a larger process of personal transformation. Now that process is entering a new phase where their inner realization begins to align with the growth you have already experienced. You must develop the ability to recognize movement in the unseen before it becomes visible within the physical world. Understand that their original withdrawal was never truly about your worth or your actions. It was connected to their own hidden struggles and the parts of themselves they had not yet confronted. You caused yourself pain by believing you were not enough or that their feelings had simply disappeared. But the deeper truth is that this individual stepped away because being close to you made it difficult for them to continue hiding from themselves. This connects with what psychology and thinkers such as Carl Jung describe as the shadow, the hidden part within us where fears, insecurities, unresolved emotions, and rejected aspects of ourselves are stored because we are afraid to expose them to the world. Before they met you, this individual kept that hidden side protected behind a carefully constructed image. They moved through ordinary life while avoiding the deeper wounds and emotions they carried beneath the surface. But your presence became like a powerful light entering a dark room. It created a deep reflection that allowed them to see themselves more clearly than they ever had before. You became a mirror through which they could no longer completely avoid the truth of who they were. When they looked at you, they did not only see your beauty, kindness, or the love you gave them. They also saw the unresolved pieces of their own life reflected back at them. Your ability to love deeply revealed their fear of vulnerability. Your honesty exposed the stories they had built to protect themselves. Your courage to embrace emotions highlighted the walls they had created around their own heart. It is important for you to truly understand this, so you can finally stop blaming yourself for the distance between you. A light that suddenly appears and shines with extraordinary intensity can feel overwhelming to someone who has spent their entire life living in the shadows. When brightness becomes too strong, the natural reaction can be to close your eyes and retreat toward the familiar darkness. That is exactly why this person stepped away. It was not because you lacked value, but because being fully seen felt unfamiliar and overwhelming to them. Their usual emotional defenses stopped functioning in the same way, leaving them feeling exposed and vulnerable in ways they had never experienced before. Their ego interpreted this openness as a serious threat to the control and protection it had depended upon for so many years. Because they could not fully understand or explain why such emotional depth frightened them, they responded with silence, mixed signals, and unclear explanations that left you carrying confusion instead of clarity. As Carl Jung suggested, True awareness begins when the hidden parts of ourselves are brought into consciousness. In many ways, your presence became a catalyst that encouraged them to face aspects of themselves they had avoided for a very long time. Comment shadow if you felt they were doing deep inner work, even while the two of you were apart. By creating this physical distance, you unknowingly removed their ability to blame the relationship for everything they were experiencing. Eventually, they were left with little choice but to recognize that the emotional conflict had always existed within themselves. The silence became an echo chamber where they had to confront fears of abandonment, feelings of not being enough, and long-standing patterns of self-sabotage that had quietly influenced their life for years. What appeared to be emotional coldness or indifference toward you was actually an exhausting internal struggle to dismantle a false identity that had protected them for such a long time. After experiencing the extraordinary depth of the connection you shared, returning to shallow conversations and emotionally empty relationships was no longer possible. The distance became a necessary pause, preventing the relationship from becoming unhealthy while they were not yet emotionally prepared, and giving both of you an opportunity to heal personal wounds without creating lasting damage to one another. Now that the hidden aspects of themselves have started entering conscious awareness, the enormous amount of energy they once invested in building emotional walls and pushing people away has been released. That same life force has completely changed direction. Instead of fueling escape, it is now moving toward acceptance, openness, and a willingness to embrace the connection. This person no longer sees the love you offered as something that threatens their independence. Instead, they are beginning to recognize it as a doorway toward genuine inner freedom. They have started to understand that the real prison was never the relationship. It was the limitations they had created inside themselves. The bond you share has become a key that unlocks a new understanding of life, representing a complete transformation in the way they view both themselves and the world around them. Where they once saw danger, they now recognize safety. Where they once felt compelled to walk away, they now feel a quiet, yet undeniable pull toward returning to where everything truly began. In the language of the soul, that beginning is the unique energy that only your connection creates. It is essential for you to realize that you did nothing wrong by loving deeply or expressing your emotions honestly. That intensity was necessary. Without that powerful awakening, this individual may have remained emotionally asleep. You became the powerful storm that cleared away years of emotional stagnation. And now that the storm inside them has passed, the landscape of their mind is beginning to clear, revealing a completely different perspective from the one they once held. The decision we spoke about earlier is now emerging from this new awareness. It is no longer the frightened inner child or the wounded version of themselves making the choice. Instead, it is the wiser and more mature spirit stepping forward to accept responsibility. It is someone who has looked directly at their own shadow, accepted it, and decided that genuine love carries greater strength than fear ever could. Type 1 deserve if you are ready to receive this love and confirmation. This inner transformation cannot always be seen with ordinary eyes. Yet beneath the surface, it can be incredibly powerful. When someone stops resisting the direction their life is trying to take, tremendous energy can be released, because you are connected to this person through invisible threads of shared emotions, meaningful experiences, and deep memories. You naturally become one of the first people to sense this energetic shift. That explains why your anxiety may have started to soften. That is why you sometimes feel their presence, even when there are no messages, no phone calls, and no outward signs of communication. The emotional barrier that once separated the two of you has begun to weaken. Just as water held behind a dam rushes forward when the barrier finally breaks, the emotions this individual has at last acknowledged within themselves are now seeking a path back toward you. But before you can fully receive this renewed flow, you must first recognize how this changing reality is already revealing itself within your everyday life. Now that their hidden emotions have surfaced and the resistance they once carried has begun to dissolve, the energy that was previously invested in running away has completely changed direction. Instead of creating distance, it is gradually moving toward reconnection. And your own body is often the first place where this subtle shift can be felt. Now that we have explored how this person's emotional resistance has started to fall away, and how their energy is no longer focused on escape, but instead on finding the path back, it becomes important to understand how this profound transformation begins appearing within ordinary daily experiences. Because this is something you should remember deeply. Shifts that happen on the energetic level rarely occur without creating some kind of response in the person who shares that connection. Your phone may remain silent, their social media may show nothing new. There may still be no obvious signs that anything has changed. Yet beneath the surface, the invisible connection linking two deeply connected souls has already begun transmitting countless signals at remarkable speed. Even before words are spoken or actions become visible, something within you begins recognizing that the energy between you is no longer exactly the same. Long before physical reality reflects the change, the unseen bond quietly begins preparing both hearts for what is gradually unfolding.